This is a new story for you, but you're familiar with the song. Many people look up to Eric Clapton, the guitar god, but behind his legendary status lies a shadowy history of shocking betrayals, vicious rivalries, and threats made in private and kept hidden for decades. A rock and roll soap opera is the best way to describe Clapton's real life. He secretly rejoiced in Jimi Hendrix's demise after stealing the wife of a Beatle. Not merely quarrels, but potent secrets that altered the trajectory of music history. Take Clapton for granted, right? Wait a minute. What you're about to hear will alter your entire perception of a well-known rock musician. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. It seems too thin or complicated to be practical. They refer to him as Slowhand. Eric Clapton is, without a doubt, a legend in the history of rock and blues music. There is a lot of resentment, broken relationships, and animosity that shaped rock history. But that's behind all the fame and music. Things were far from calm in Clapton's real life, despite how calm he appears when playing guitar. It was so lonely, he said, that he considered leaving sometimes. In this article, we will examine Clapton through the eyes of his most formidable adversaries, a perspective that is unfamiliar to many of his admirers. These disputes were far from minor. These fights were fueled by genuine animosity, envy, and profound emotional distress. Famous Clapton songs include Layla and Tears in Heaven. After this, you will perceive him in a completely different light. These 5 rock stars were deeply despised by Clapton, as well as nasty comments made in interviews. There were brawls behind the scenes. 5th place goes to Ginger Baker. The wacky and blazing Cream drummer Ginger Baker comes in at number 5. In the beginning, Clapton and Baker performed magic together. Cream was a groundbreaking rock supergroup that played powerful music. However, behind the scenes, things were not going as planned. Characters couldn't help but clash from the very beginning. Because of all the backstabbing, everyone around them had to tread carefully. He once threatened to leave with a roadie, saying, "Either he goes or I go." Not even sharing a room brought them together. Ginger believed Clapton was sacrificing his art for fame, while Clapton thought she was insane. During their 1968 farewell tour, they barely exchanged glances on stage as things became unbearably bad. Despite the fact that they created some fantastic music together, their relationship was awful. Clapton refused to collaborate with Ginger for a long time after Ginger claimed he was terrified of him. They briefly reconnected in 2005. Bad relationships can inspire great music, as their story demonstrates. At number 4 is Frank Zappa. The 4th example is a conflict involving more than just characters. The musical opinions of Frank Zappa and Eric Clapton were diametrically opposed. These 2 artists were completely distinct from one another and had radically different perspectives. Crazy, unpredictable, and always trying something new, Zappa was a real character. Comedic, classical, jazz, and rock were all pieces that he composed. It was his style to disobey authority. Contrarily, Clapton believed that staying true to tradition, feeling was crucial. Even though he didn't like Clapton's style, Zappa didn't mind saying so. In a well-known interview from 1978, he claimed that Clapton was a predictable musician who stuck to the same songs over and over again. He claimed Clapton's work was boring and safe. If anything bad were to happen to Zappa, it would be that. Clapton remained silent in public due to his intense anger, but he did retaliate through music writers. That Zappa's chaotic endeavors were an attempt to conceal his incompetence as a musician, and that he had no concept of what real music was. Their argument escalated to a climax at 1969's Love and Peace Festival. Zappa had his set ready to begin immediately prior to Clapton's, and both bands were performing. According to the band members, Zappa replied with a smile, "Let's see him follow that." There were a lot of unexpected noises in his set, and it was completely bizarre. It was as if 2 distinct universes collided on stage when Clapton stepped on with his iconic blues sound. Zappa continued to mock Clapton following that. In interviews, he mocked Clapton's solos, calling them inane pentatonic exercises. Clapton was being serious. In private, he criticized Zappa's music and called him a fake thinker. This rivalry, however, was about more than just 2 individuals. The piece speculated on potential future developments in rock music. It was time to break the rules and go on, according to Zappa. The blues' essence and its legacy were important to Clapton. Despite Zappa's death in 1993, Clapton remained silent in public. Not an ode. Not pleasant things. Absolutely nothing. He still didn't want to put on an act of respect for someone he didn't like or comprehend, even though his loved ones warned him against it. Quietness ultimately conveyed more than words ever could. Mark Richards, third. The third place goes to the long-running, dramatic, and angry feud between Eric Clapton and Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. It was an intimate conflict. It was profoundly more than song. It included shattered friendships, stolen loves, and competing egos. Pattie Boyd was the one who started all of the problems. She wed George Harrison, who was Clapton's best friend. Clapton stole her away from Harrison after falling madly in love with her. All of music was rocked. Because Richards had always protected Harrison, he was furious. He compared his move to a serpent and said it revealed Clapton's true character to the world. Following that, Clapton and Richards turned into enemies rather than friends. But it wasn't the end of the story. Clapton was never a fan of Richards' guitar playing style. That's exactly what he believed. He went so far as to call it lazy right to his face. According to Richards, Clapton's playing was boring, and the only mood he could play was sad blues. Like two thugs in a bar brawl, they began yelling insults at one another. Their feuds escalated in the 1970s, when both men were battling addiction. To Richards, Clapton was using narcotics as a crutch to avoid reality. Richards was subsequently mocked by Clapton for his inability to improve as a musician. He pointed out